Good morning, race fans. I'm John, and this is In the Marbles. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. The truck race and the O'Reilly Series race in Atlanta yesterday were both phenomenal. Now, the first race was impacted by a 1 hour rain delay, which made them basically have a timed cutoff for the race so that they could get ready for the O'Reilly's race later. And so we ended up cutting the first race, the truck race, down by about 10 laps. It had a scheduled white flag at 4:20 p.m. And then, basically whoever's leading at 4:20, we're going to wave the white flag and then it's one more lap to the finish. So while it's not ideal to be shortening races or dealing with that, I understand why they did it. I don't think it was because of TV. I honestly think it was so that the truck teams and the O'Reilly teams had enough time to disassemble their gear, get it out of the pits and get the other gear in and get the new, basically they needed time to switch setups. We needed to switch out the trucks for the O'Reilly's cars and teams. So I understand they wanted about an hour between the races. And so I understand why they did it. It's not ideal. I wish we didn't have to do it. Maybe they could have started the race 10 minutes sooner, but it is what it is. And I thought the finish was actually pretty phenomenal. So let's get into it. So got everything lined up here, but let's skip forward so you can see a little bit more of the action. But overall, I thought it was a phenomenal race. I thought uh, you know, you had Kyle Busch in control much of the race, and then he and Carson Hocevar, and you can hear it in how Kyle Busch talked about it afterwards. He's like, "Oh, Hocevar being Carson Hocevar," but I kind of understand. In the first stage, you're trying to say, "All right, who's going to be in front? Who's going to be dominant?" You're both trying to make moves. Second stage, working together a little bit more. Okay, I help you, you help me. And then third stage, when Hocevar you realized that his engine was overheating. I think he said that his engine temp was up to 250 or something. So he knew that he had no way to really win. He was not going to be able to front run. He would be working the car or the truck too hard. So overall, I do think him becoming a pusher was a great decision on his part and great to work with Kyle Busch. I mean, maybe this is a little bit of a long-term recruitment effort by Spire to pick up Kyle Busch for next year. Maybe he drops into the 7 car that Suarez is in now in Cup. Who knows? But why not lay that groundwork by being a good teammate? So I got to congratulate Carson Hocevar. I thought he raced a great race given the limitations of his vehicle. And, what can I say? I thought he worked really well with Kyle Busch. And this is the second week in a row that it was not the Daytona race, but the Daytona duels, where Chase Elliott said, "Yeah, I would not have gotten to win that duel if it not was not for Carson Hocevar doing the good Chevy teammate sort of thing by giving a good push and being there and being that good wingman." And then here we are with Kyle Busch saying the same thing a week later. I mean, I think this is a sign that Carson Hocevar is maturing, becoming a little less brash, realizing that he has to do some, let's call it good karma things and build up some bonus points or whatever with the other drivers in the series. So I think he's again, this is a maturity level thing. This is a growing up and becoming a better race car driver. So overall, thoroughly impressed. Thought there was just a lot of great driving. Corey Heim looked great. Rhodes, I thought, had the dominant truck all day. He was running out front early and then ended up, falling to the back when he ran out of gas at the second stage. So I thought that was a little rough. But then he made it all the way back to the front and was vying for the lead and vying for the win. So I think you got to watch Ben Rhodes. He a dominant performance. Corey Heim also a really good performance out front a lot and up toward the front in the mix. So what can I say? Amazing race. Definitely go and watch it. But let's check my notes here. They talked about the adverse condition rules. Early race, grip building and draft rhythm, drivers laid rubber, outside lane develop momentum advantage, single file runs help stabilize trucks. You know, Kyle Busch's approach, tested lower line for runs, saved equipment and fuel, waited for late race opportunity. He just was very efficient, and he would fall back, he would move back toward the front, and then it took Carson Hocevar and Kyle Busch working together to really leapfrog and get back up to the front and take that lead. And then, basically Hocevar giving him a good push, making it so he could win that race. Because otherwise, I don't think he could have outrun Rhodes or Corey Heim, who both had fast trucks. So very good. Corey Heim charged from 20th to the front, race winning speed. Gio Ruggiero. I gotta say, I'm impressed with this guy. I didn't know who he was until the ARCA race the other day, which he won. And then he did the Daytona truck race. And then here he is in this. He also, I think, did the ARCA race. So he's kind of everywhere right now. Really impressed with how hard he's working. Two races back to back. But overall, yeah, recovered quickly from a penalty, continued strong Daytona momentum. Hocevar, aggressive but controlled. I mean, he did the thing you got to say about Hocevar is that no matter what, he's being talked about. He's being talked about as aggression, some youthful mistakes. But overall, this week and last week, talking about how he's a good teammate, a good pusher, and always putting himself in a potential to win, even if his car isn't there. So last week in the truck series at Daytona, he had an engine shut off. He had two left rear tire issues, but he was always in the mix. And here we are this week, overheating truck. But if he wasn't there, to push, I don't think Kyle Busch could have won this race. So really impressed. Thought some people thought it was weird that he went out for the high five during the burnout, but I thought it was actually kind of a cool moment. It's like, hey man, I know we're not normally teammates, but we really worked together well here. Got the high five, and then he just got out of the way, let Kyle Busch finish his burnout. But I don't know. It just actually, it reminded me of when Dale Jr. won and Michael Waltrip came out, and they're both in the infield grass, and then they climb up on top of Dale Jr.'s truck. So there's this great iconic photo of Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip on top of his Bud vehicles. So it reminded me of that a little bit. So I think people are a little touchy when it comes to Carson Hocevar because they just like, I don't know. I feel like they pigeonholed him unfairly. Yeah, he's done some stupid stuff, but realize that the kid just loves racing and is hyper competitive and wants to win. But that's why he's always in the mix. He's always being aggressive. They were talking about it in the broadcast. It was Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney talking about like, look, if he's got an inch of a gap that he thinks he can fit into, and he's going to take it. If he sees a run that he's, is developing, he's going to take it. And that's aggressive driving. And frankly, I like aggressive driving. I want somebody who's not totally passive. Now, you need to temper that with logic and experience. And those are the things, like experience is the thing he doesn't have at the cup level. So he needs to keep building it up. The more experience you have, the better decisions you make. So youthful decisions get replaced by wisdom. And I think we're starting to see that maturity come. And, he's realizing that he has to, work with a few more people to get stuff done. So overall, thoroughly impressed. But what can I say? I did think that the truck race was absolutely phenomenal. Very well done. Totally worth your time if you haven't watched it. And let's go over some more of the details. Stage one finish, late battle, Heim versus Busch versus Hocevar. Hocevar pushing Busch, nearly delivered stage win. Corey Heim wins stage one. This was, drafting precision versus aggression. And then had a split in the pit strategy here. We had a bunch of teams took 2 tires, moved up in position. Most of the cup drivers I saw took 4 tires, and Heim restarted deeper due to I guess I put here strategy shuffle, but I think it's because he also took 4 tires and he dropped a bit. Stage 2, tandems and lane strategy. Busch Hocevar tandem, controlled disciplined pushes, smart lift and re-engage and entering corners. I think because Hocevar's vehicle was overheating, he would pull back a little bit to get some air into the engine and try to cool it off. But also, as you were entering the corner, he would sometimes back off so he wasn't pushing through the um, biggest part of the corner to make sure that you weren't off center, weren't unstable. And then once you're out of the corner, he would re-engage and continue the push. So I think it did two things. I think it made it so you weren't pushing off center through a big corner, but also that engine cooling was important, and you could see him kind of pulling back and then re-engaging, pulling back and re-engaging. And I think, again, I think some of that was just because he was overheating 254 degrees, I believe he mentioned at one point. So um what else do I got? Nemechek and Stenhouse and Ruggiero were all in the mix, and it was just, I don't know, I think it's cool seeing how the cup drivers can just come in there and really kind of show their stuff. Stenhouse for a second week in a row. This is his, I guess, only second truck start, and he was running toward the front of the pack, showed a lot of car control, and got to say, I thought he did a really good showing. So overall, Nemechek and Stenhouse and Ruggiero, both or all three were phenomenal. And then we got a late caution. Sutton hit the wall, Butcher involved, number 13, tie rod damage, end of the day. And then, yeah, quick reset. And then the final run, drafting chess match is what I have here. Hocevar's team first decision, truck not strong enough to win, push Busch rather than forcing move. Second week in a row, teammates praised him in his drafting help. And again, I said, and I keep repeating myself, but I want to say this is a huge sign of maturity and understanding that this year DNFs are not okay. Like last year, he could play the I can gamble a little more and get a win because winning you're in. But this year, he's got to point his way there. And so, yes, I know this is a truck race, not the cup race, but it's all about creating those habits and tendencies. And, frankly, doing good stuff in truck to help you build alliances in cup is probably a really smart strategy. Helping out McDowell or Chase Elliott or Kyle Busch helps you in the cup series, because now those guys are like, oh yeah, he helped me yesterday, or oh, he helped me a week ago. I don't have to screw him over. So I do think this is a little bit of good strategy on his part, but overall, top five finish. Kyle Busch, Carson Hocevar, Gio Ruggiero, Ben Rhodes, Corey Heim. What an amazing truck race. Um, what can I say? Kyle Busch, Hocevar, Heim, Ruggiero, all good performances. And then we get to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Um, I want to call it the Grand National Series, O'Reilly Grand National Series, because we need to somehow differentiate it so that when somebody accidentally says Xfinity Series, oh, we all know we're talking about the Grand National Series. We all talk about Cup. We need to talk, and then we all referred to it as Xfinity for a decade. I think, we can call it O'Reilly's, but let's call it the O'Reilly Grand National Series so we understand the levels involved. But that's a minor nitpick on my part. Um, let's get you some. Let's speed that up. Just want to play this fast so you can see it behind me. But overall, I thought Junior Motorsports had a really strong day in the O'Reilly series. You saw, Smith, Cavapel, I don't know how to say his name correctly, um, Rajah Caruth, and Allgaier all toward the front most of the day until they got wrecked out by Corey Day when Cavapel and Allgaier both hit the wall and Corey Day was able to keep going. But what can I say? Junior Motorsports had a good day until they didn't have a good day. Mid-race reset after Corey Day incident. RCR surged late. Remember, Austin Hill did not qualify well. I think he started in 20th and then, came to the front. But let's talk about Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed is consistently toward the front. But he's never won until yesterday. It was 138 starts to get his first win, but he had 15 second place finishes. And every time I watched last year the Xfinity, this year the O'Reilly Grand National Series, he was always in the mix, always toward the front, and he's a darn good driver, but a little mistake or maybe not being aggressive enough or just not being in the right position, stuff happens. That's why, but he finally won. And I think this is also, I've talked about it many times, this psychological barrier. He now has that first win. And now I think each win from now on will become easier because he's cracked that. He's now busted through. He's got that first win. And as I said, when you have that psychological barrier where you keep getting second place over and over and over again, getting that first place finish takes that block away, makes it easier. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. I just, these psychological barriers that people create, even if they're unconscious, can really limit how you perform because you are always in the back of your mind going to second place finish, place finish, second place finish. And now he finally has it. And that, I'm going to see if, can I find that last 3 minutes? Because if I could find the last 3 minutes, like it was epic. This is one of those, like the last few minutes of this race were so good. How much fun. Oh, that's the truck race. What happened? I had O'Reilly's. There we go. Let's go to this one. We're going to go toward the end. But it's one of those where it was such a good race. And then you had Ross Chastain leading, Austin Hill behind, Love was in the mix. Creed was always there. And then when you had Ross hit Austin just a little off center and he wiped out and had an absolutely unbelievable save so that he finished sixth. That was an outrageous save, and I think maybe we need to keep track of the best saves of the year so that we can vote on it for the end of the year. And I think that one would definitely be in the mix for the best save of the year, and we're only in the second race of the year. So absolutely unbelievable finish. Sanchez was surging at the end. I thought Sanchez had a real opportunity to win. He seemed to be very fast at the right point in time when I thought he was going to get it. But Sheldon Creed, right place, right time, so that when Hill was pushed off the track into the middle by Ross, Ross ended up losing momentum, slowing down, and Creed was right there and just kind of sailed through because everybody else was getting blocked, but Creed had stayed up high, and I think we're coming to it pretty soon. But they had such a great mix, and this was such a fun race. Minimal issues with crashes. And then I want to throw out a bone to Rajah Caruth. Like that dude saved his truck a handful of times. I'm sorry, not his truck. I'm so used to saying truck with Caruth because of last year. Uh, Saved his car because he lost his back end was loose and he almost drifted a few corners completely and he saved it several times. But overall, really impressed. And then here we are. We have Love and Mayer. I mean, it was just such a great race. Highly recommend going to watching if you haven't. He ran toward the front. Sheldon Creed ran toward the front all day long, avoided forcing risky moves, positioned himself properly for the final lap so he could capitalize when Ross Chastain wiped out Austin Hill. I don't think it was an intentional wipeout. I think he was trying to give him a nice firm push to try to get by him, but it is what it is. Not. I don't think it was an intentional. I'm going to wreck you. So overall, persistence finally paid off for Sheldon Creed, and I hope that this removes a little bit of that subconscious or unconscious psychological barrier that was preventing him from really succeeding. Because the dude can drive. He is consistently in the top five and running toward the front of the pack, and you can't do that in O'Reilly Grand National Series if you're not a phenomenal driver. So, what can I say? Big fan of both of these races. A couple people to watch. I want you to watch Nick Sanchez. He nearly stole it. He was in the right place. He was surging at the right time, and he just, if not for a key block right there at the end, he may have been competing with Sheldon Creed for that win. But Creed was just, again, he chose the high side instead of the low side, was in the right place when everything kind of fell apart below him. So what can I say? Austin Hill near perfect final move, and then he got bumped, and it just that recovery. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. I do repeat myself. I know this, um, but that recovery may be one of the best recoveries we see all year because I thought he was going into the wall, and he was able to get back on the track and finish in a decent place. So not bad. Ross Chastain, I thought looked really strong. I think this will actually help him in Cup. It's always good to get a practice race in before the Cup race. But was aggressive, was in a Jordan Anderson car, and overall, thought he did pretty darn good. But he did, like, once he bumped Austin Hill, he either hit the brake or just totally lost momentum because like he dropped back and everybody passed him. So Jesse Love, aggressive all race, was always in the mix, stayed in contention. Don't think I saw anything that was like an error, but he and Austin Hill definitely compete and they'll work with each other until they're like, no, 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 I want to be in front. And you can kind of see when that decision happens with Jesse Love because it's like, no, no, I want to lead, I want to win. So no, definitely Jesse Love is one of the drivers in the Grand National Series that I do follow and do like to watch because he's a darn good driver. And those RCR cars are super fast. But, and this is the thing that I think we need to take into account, the junior motorsports cars were super fast early on. RCR didn't really come on until later. So it was definitely an interesting mix of who was at the front because you got Jordan Anderson, you got Sheldon Creed, who's Haas factory team, and then you had the RCR cars, and you had Sammy Smith until he got wrecked, or maybe he had a flat tire. But yeah, just you know, so many different or I shouldn't say manufacturers, so many different teams and team setups toward the front. So I don't know if RCR has as dominant a car on the other tracks as they do on the super speedways like Daytona, the really long ones. So we'll see, but maybe the Hendrick Motorsports engines that are in the Hendrick cars and the Junior Motorsports cars, maybe they've caught up to RCR and the ECR engines. So definitely something to pay attention to. And then I want to talk about Rajah Caruth again. First career stage win, huge mid-race save, avoided a late wreck, stayed competitive, and overall was just really impressed with how he was driving. And I think just more experience for him in this series will do a lot. Um, Turning point, Corey Day incident. He took out Kvapil. Again, I'm not sure how to say that name. And Allgaier, and really kind of changed the competition of the front of the pack because you took out two of the leaders there. So didn't take out himself. And I really have to question what happened there. He claims that there was a slow leak or a blown tire in his front right, which is why he drifted up the track, hit Kvapil in the back corner, and caused him to go up into the wall. And then because of them slowing down, caused Allgaier behind them to go into the wall. I didn't see his front corner dropping. There was a little bit of potential sparks right when they were close to the wall, but it seemed like his movement had happened like maybe that was finally like maybe the tire was a slow leak and he was finally by the time he got closer to the wall he was scraping the pavement, but it just looked weird. And Corey Day was definitely involved in a lot of incidents during that race. A lot of people I'm sure are unhappy with a couple things that he did, but he definitely showed speed and then he worked his way back toward the front a couple different times. So be interesting to see what happens with Corey Day if he gets more experience and stops kind of creating havoc on the racetrack. But overall, thought Junior Motorsports had a really good day. Thought RCR had a really good late surge. And then Sheldon Creed, congratulations on your first win. Epic win. And dude, you were close to the front almost the entire day, and just showed a lot of poise and a lot of good strategy and restraint. sometimes you might see a gap and you're like, oh, let's go for it, but you held back and made the smart moves instead of the immediate move, and I think that is a key. So what else do we got here? Um, Yeah, I think that the other story that there is Nick Sanchez kind of almost stealing the win there at the end, because he was not a big factor early on. He had to crawl from the back of the field to the front, but by the end he was right in the mix. So overall, Atlanta delivered on two phenomenal races. I gotta say, Atlanta is definitely turning up into to be one of the better racetracks in my mind. Up there, I mean, I love Daytona because it's Daytona. I also really love the Charlotte track. I thought the last year's Coke 600 was amazing. So I think Atlanta is just one of those tracks. Maybe it's these intermediate like mile and a halfs that I'm like a big fan of. I just think they're really good. But overall, was really impressed with just quality racing in both races. Not a lot of unnecessary wrecks. Of course, there's some wrecks that shouldn't have happened, but that's just sort of part of racing. So overall, I think the story for this week and last week, that outside of just the racing, is Hocevar getting praise from multiple competitors on how he helped them to the win, and shows that I think that shows a lot of maturity coming out of him, and overall just some great racing, and I am getting excited. It's 11 a.m. in the West Coast. I'm in California. And so we got a race starting in about an hour, and I'll get this up and posted, and then we'll get another video out about the Cup race tomorrow. Talk to you soon.